you. Welcome everybody, and apologies for the delay in starting, especially to those who are listening on YouTube. We had some IT difficulties, but hopefully they're up and running and now we'll be okay. So welcome to West Edinburgh Council's Development Management Committee meeting today on the 27th of October. I'll put my video on for a second and hope that it doesn't all crash. Okay, there we go. As usual, please could I just remind all attendees to mute their microphones just to make sure it reduces the background noise. And the chat box should be used if you wish to declare an interest or raise a question or take part in the debate. If you do lose internet connection, which is possible the way things are going, I think, then the meeting will be adjourned briefly just to allow you to come back online. As I've mentioned already, the meeting is being live streamed, but if we do lose internet connection again, which affects the live stream, it won't be necessarily possible to adjourn the meeting, I'm afraid, in the event that members of the public or the press do actually lose their internet connection. The applications will follow their usual procedure, which is the case for presenting their report, followed by the registered speakers being invited to speak. Members of the committee will be able to question each speaker on points of clarity if they so wish, and speakers will be invited into the meeting at the beginning of each application and return to the lobby once a decision has been reached. Once we get to that stage, once we get to the stage of the recommendation being ready to be moved and seconded, this will happen to enable the debate. And at the conclusion of the debate on each application, I shall call for the vote. And every councillor who is in attendance will be called to confirm they were present for the entire item and asked for vote either for, against or to abstain. Also, I just need to remind members that if you are minded to vote against a recommendation which results in that application being refused, then you will need to be prepared to give clear reasons for that refusal, supported by the relevant policies from the joint local plan, as that is what would be relied on at a subsequent appeal. Just looking at interests, if you have a disclosable pecuniary interest, then you will need to declare it and to leave the meeting for the duration of the relevant application and will be required to disconnect from the call. You'll be invited back to the meeting once that particular application has then been determined. So please could I just remind members to remain focused on the application being considered. Keep questions and comments short and to the point. The minute taker always finds it harder than normal to identify who is speaking and what is being said when we're in virtual meetings, so please do speak clearly and at a reasonable pace. Where an officer wishes to speak, they will generally indicate using the chat facility. So I'm now going to ask Mrs. Hall to take a roll call, which will ensure that all can hear and be heard, and to confirm that the meeting is quorate. She will then advise the committee and members of the public of the officers then who are present and their role. Thank you, Mrs. Hall, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Cheadle, can you hear, are you present and can you hear all of the meeting? Thank you.
I am present and I can hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
I am here and I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I am present and I can hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
I'm here and I can hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
I'm present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I am present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
I am present and can hear.
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Renders. Councillor Vachon.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
I'm present and I can hear.
Thank you. And can I just say for clarification for those listening to this meeting, we have Pat Weimer, Head of Planning, David Fairburn, Solicitor, Anna Henderson-Smith, Planning Officer, Jackie Houslander, Planning Officer, Darryl White, Democratic Services Manager, and myself, Cathy Hall, Democratic Services Officer. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Phil Townsend with us from Highways as well, who's kindly sitting in on the meeting to take questions from any members regarding highways issues. Okay, so we will now start with the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Renders. Thank you.
Thank you. And item 2, the declarations of interest. So members are invited to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. So if any member wishes to declare an interest, please could you indicate in the chat message and I'll bring you in. And just as a starter for 10, I will kick it off with I'll declare a personal interest in item 1726/20/ARM by virtue of being a member of Oakhampton Town Council and the Hamlets Parish Council being in my ward. So I did sit in on discussions that were had with the developer, and I confirm that I abstained from the vote at the Town Council and have come with an open mind to this meeting this morning. Equally, probably on behalf of all members, I would think a personal interest in item 0629/20 which is the Hallatherley application, as I think all members were written to by the objector, but as that letter isn't in the public domain, I'll declare that as a personal interest. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I would declare a personal interest as a member of the Devon Building Control Partnership. That's in all the applications. And I will also declare a personal interest in the application for Hatherley because of the letter from the objector, which you mentioned previously. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Item 3 is items requiring urgent attention, and nothing has been brought to my attention this morning. Item 4 is confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of September 2020, which can be found on pages 1 to 2 of your agenda. Is everybody happy that I sign these as a true and accurate record? If
yes,
not,
Chairman, they are a correct record of the meeting that took place.
Thank you. We will take that vote by exception unless anybody indicates otherwise in the chat. Lovely. Thank you. I will sign them at some point. So we move to item number 5, the planning applications. And our first application is 1726/20/ARM, which is Oakhampton North, land to the east of Crediton Road, north of Kellens Lane, Oakhampton. Over to Ms Henderson-Smith for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, just presenting my desktop. Could somebody just confirm verbally or in the chat that everybody can see that?
No, we can't, I'm afraid. We can see you. Oh, that's it. That's it.
Did it come through now? It should be the front screen.
It has come through, but I think probably there will be a delay as you move your mouse, so you will need to take that into account, I think.
I will.
Thank you.
Right. Good morning, members. This is a reserved matters application for 220 houses and the link road from Exeter Road Industrial Estate through to Crediton Road. The outline permission for this was approved by this committee and granted in January 2019. It is a relatively large and complex scheme. I've hopefully covered all the elements within the report that's before you. So I'm just going to give an overview of the site allocation, the proposal, and we'll try and focus on the most salient points, leaving members the opportunity to ask for expansion of the report in questions if required. So just going to give it a second to catch up to make sure you've got the location plan now in front of you. The site is known as Parcel 3 of the East of Oakhampton allocation, which is TTV 14 in the Joint Local Plan. This particular proposal also includes, I'll give my mouse a second to catch up, that this section here, which I'm hoping you can see, so it includes a small portion of the area known as Parcel 4 of the allocation. So Parcel 3 is the larger section that you can see the little house icon in, and Parcel 4 of the wider allocation is the area to the north of Brightly Stream. And you can see that this particular application before you today takes in a little sliver of parcel 4 as well as the entirety of parcel 3. So from this plan, which is obviously very similar, but it's just to show that the outline application was not made by a developer or a house builder, it was made by the landowner at the time. And this application is made by Barrett's David Wilson, the one before you today. So this location plan in front of you just shows the extent of their control. So it's really just to give a broader picture of the fact that the application is obviously for the red line site, but that BDW, as I'll refer to them from now on, do control the whole of parcel 4 as well, just for context. Again, obviously just showing it on the aerial photograph, but it's helpful here to note some points of reference that occur frequently throughout the plans and the photographs, just for sort of orientation for those members who perhaps haven't been to site, don't know the site, as well as some others. So there is a tree preservation order on the site. So I'll just give my arrow a minute to catch up with you all, but I'm hoping that you can see there is only really one cluster of separated trees in the middle of this application site. That is a group TPO of oaks, so that's helpful to orientate yourself around the plans and photographs as we go through. Similarly, you can see the current just to the south of those oaks, the current dead end here of the what's called the Southern Link Road. That again is a helpful point. And the existing suds pond that you can see just sort of in the centre of the application site, which serves the Linden development, Meldon Fields. And just beyond that, sorry, my cursor keeps disappearing, just beyond that, to the north of that suds pond, you can see a tree-lined row. That is Brightly Stream within there. It's that tree-lined row which forms the edge of parcel 3 portion, and then to the north of that becomes parcel 4, and the land rises beyond that. So the plan that's hopefully loading in front of you now is the vision plan taken from the joint local plan, and it shows the aim of the East of Oakhampton allocation for housing, which you can see in brown there, right out on the east, and the new link road forming a transport corridor. So that hashed white arrow between those two road routes is the aspirational required infrastructure for the link road. The other two main aspects really of the East of Oakhampton allocation, which are the provision of parcel 2, which is the sort of brown as it comes around the corner here, and the school, which is denoted on this plan by the orangey yellow blob and the ABC, have both either been delivered or are underway. The school is open and delivered to such a point at the moment as it serves the number of houses, and parcel 2 itself is now partially occupied and is underway. So just for context, before I go through some plans, there's just one photograph here. Hopefully in the top right, you can see some wonderful artwork by myself, I think it's fair to say, showing the arrow from where I was standing when I took that picture. So straight across, looking up towards Abbeyford Woods, for those of you that know it in the distance there, across that group TPO, which is very, very visible and clear looking across the site, and you can see on the right hand side of the picture, you can see that clear line that forms Brightly Stream. You can see the suds pond, and just over on the left you can see the cars parked up at the dead end of the section of the link road that has been put in, and just beyond that, those white properties are the edge of the Kellens Lane and Broom Park sections of the Linden development. And just beyond that, for those of you with very good eyesight, you can just about see a load of earthworks just beyond those TPOs, and that's the earthworks currently being undertaken by ADPAD on their site on parcel 2 and to put in the roundabout that forms part of this application that I'll touch on in a minute. So that's just to give a context across the site. Just to be clear, so as not to mislead, I had to stand here because it gives a good view across the site, but the application site that's before you at the moment begins at this hedgerow. Hope you can see my cursor. So the area right in the foreground with the fencing is not part of this application. It actually begins where that small building is and that sort of partial hedgerow. That's the most easterly point of the current application. So turning to the site layout, which also for our purposes here really acts as a sort of overall master plan, really. It gives the most holistic sort of overview of the site. There are a large suite of plans that accompany this application, as you would imagine, but in this presentation I've tried to include the most pertinent for members, and this one sets out, as I say, the overall site layout and shows those key items. So hopefully for reference now you've got the group TPO here, you can see shown. Perhaps someone can just tell me if my cursor doesn't pop up. So I'm assuming you can see it. So my arrow here showing this sort of curved group TPO. The existing suds pond is the central one, which actually currently serves the Linden development, and the proposed suds pond is just to the east of that, sort of a longer, slimmer pond here. The public open space on this site is quite extensive and exceeds the requirement actually that's within the current section 106. So you can see those areas. It loops. There's the area here next to the TPO, and then you can see this sort of cream colour, I suppose, as it goes round the outside of the site, taking in usable space and amenity space around the suds ponds. And then in green, you can see there are two sort of triangular spaces in the centre of the scheme along the edge of the link road here. And then on parcel 4, you can see the play area, the more organised, if you like, play area rather than just public open space, a long linear strip here, and the two smaller equipped pockets either side of Brightly Stream here. Obviously, the scheme also shows this link road, so you can see that curving through from the sort of north to the south. And I'll reference these later on, but down here, sorry, this is very small on your screen, but just down here, there are 4 public electric vehicle charging points on 4 spaces, just here, just off the link road. So just for points of reference, they're the sort of main elements. So just to touch on the key issues then for members. Sorry. This is the indicative plan. So if I talk first about the section 106 that was approved previously under the outline, and predominantly the link road. The link road is a part of the infrastructure required under the TTV 14 policy, and its principle was approved as part of the outline in 2019. So the plan before you now is the indicative plan, which was approved under the outline permission within the section 106. So this plan has been taken directly from the section 106, and it shows the indicative route that was sort of considered or expected at the time for the link road. But most importantly, what this plan was included to show was it sets out the stages of the link road's delivery and links those to the section 106 and the triggers within the 106 for the road delivery. So the purpose of this plan wasn't to set out in detail the route of the road. That wasn't known at that time. It was an outline only, but its purpose, as I'm hoping you can see from the key at the side, which might not be that clear, but was to delineate the areas the roundabout works, the first section works, the second section works, and the Hameldown Road spur road, which was linked within the 106 to triggers for when those areas had to be delivered and then when the whole road had to be open for public use. So following that, and as a sort of sister application alongside this application that you have before you, and as you'll see forming part of the recommendation, is a deed of variation where it is proposed that the plan currently before you on screen, as part of the new proposal, it shows the road still going from point A to point B, so still from the Hameldown Road, Spur Road, which comes off the back of the Exeter Road Industrial Estate, through to Crediton Road, where you can see the sort of green blob of the roundabout, which is currently going in at present. So it still goes from the same point A to the same point B. It takes a less straight route, but nevertheless, it's still at the required specification for the distributor road. And as I say, it goes from point A to point B. And I've just tried to compare those on plan as best I can. So what hopefully you can see from that, and forgive the quality, but is that the important point here is that the coloration of the two plans is the same. You can see that the first section, second section, roundabout, and the Hameldown Road sections are coloured the same and taking the same sections as road as far as they can, given that the road's route has changed. So the proposal within the accompanying deed of variation is purely at this point to just substitute the plan you can see on your left, the plan you can see on your right, substitute it for the plan on the left, so that within the section 106, the actual, if members choose to approve this scheme, the actual approved route of the road will be the one that's shown in these stages within the 106, just for clarity, really. But it tidies that up and makes it much clearer with regards to deliverability. So sorry, going back to that. So I mean, overall, my point would be that the road that's proposed is the correct specification for purpose. It goes from the right point to the right point. It would remain secured at the same delivery points and the same triggers within the section 106 as it is at present, as agreed by members previously. So turning now to one of the other issues that's within the recommendation, I'll just talk briefly about the landscape plan. As an update, the small alterations that were required to finalise the landscape scheme have now been undertaken by the applicant, and the landscape officer confirmed yesterday that all of the requests that she had requested have now been addressed and that the landscape scheme is now completely satisfactory. The applicants have worked very well with their landscape consultants and with the council officers in order to accommodate various changes and requests. The remaining alterations, as I say, required by the landscape officer have now been incorporated. So it just remains for the plans list to be updated. That sort of finalisation only occurred yesterday. So the plans list before you currently would need to be just updated to show those new revisions of the landscape plans. But just to give members an idea, the plan on screen shows one area of the site and demonstrates the level of detail that has been received, and hopefully, to give members some comfort that the landscaping, it is a reserve matter, and this is a reserve matters application, and that it really has been drilled down into here. I think you can probably tell from just the quantity of text on that plan in front of you and the amount of detailing. That's one very small portion of the site. I've put a small plan in the top right to try and indicate the same area you're looking at. So this is the entrance down from Hameldown Road, but there are a number of changes that have had to occur. This is just one slight update. So, for example, it was hoped that the sort of beach avenue that you see me refer to within the report could continue down into this entrance from Kellens Lane, but unfortunately, if you remember briefly the photograph I showed you, this area that's dotted, I'll just wait for my cursor to catch up, is actually made up ground that forms the, if you like, the bank engineering up the side of the link road. So on balance, because of protecting the integrity of that bank and potentially what material it may have been made up with, it's been decided that smaller or domestic level trees will be incorporated into this Devon bank at the rear here, and then 2 specimen sort of cultivar of native beech trees. So that's like fancy beech trees to you and I, but native species will be put here as a real kind of gatepost pair into the scheme without compromising, obviously, the the Oak TPOs. So there's been some quite good dialogue and discussion to try and overcome constraints of the site. There are a number of larger trees incorporated into this site. There is a sort of beach avenue effect going down the main route either side of the link road. That was an officer request. For those of you who know Oakhampton well, it was in a hope of trying to echo Fatherford Lane or New Road as you come into Oakhampton on those big entrances where you have those real tree-lined, beach tree-lined entrances. Similarly, there is a large amount of new Devon hedge bank incorporated into this site along both sides of the link road, but also to some boundaries. The existing TPO group and the brightly streamed trees have been well incorporated and sort of celebrated within the landscape scheme that's been proposed, to kind of showcase them. They are really the only features that are on the site at the moment. So turning briefly to open space, sport and recreation, which is also within your recommendation, is a point that also just needs overcoming. For various constraint reasons, the two smaller play areas, equipped play areas, can't be amalgamated together onto the south side of Brightly Stream. To do with levels, constraints, easements, various things. It has been explored in quite some detail. However, the additional plans that were requested by the OSSR officer have been submitted, demonstrating the usability of the large kickabout play area that we saw on the edge of parcel 4, and subject to a couple of minor changes which the applicant is agreeable to. It's considered that open space, sport and recreation is acceptable. So again, basically there's a couple of small tweaks that are needed to some plans, but overall the amount of OSSR, the play provision and everything else is considered acceptable. And where there are areas that we've requested a change to, they've been accommodated where they can, and where they can't, they have been explained out, and we've accepted that it is quite a constrained site in some areas. So moving to house design, again, there are many within the house type booklet. However, the following I've chosen to insert in, hopefully to give a range across the sort of sizes and types that are being proposed. These are a couple of, I think now, indicative street scenes. The materials across the site are a combination of brick, not bright red brick, that's being used for some detailing, but on the whole it's an earthier colour brick with some sort of grey and brown mottling to it, more akin to what's been used on the Hedgerow site and within the school building, to try and provide some sort of continuity across the east of Oakhampton development. There is render in 3 different colours, a beige, a grey and a mushroom, and a reconstituted stone on some key buildings, and the roofs are a combination of either natural slate or plain grey tiles. A lot of the key buildings have natural slate, with others with just the plain dark grey tile. So this gives an example of just some of the so 3-bed unit, some of the smaller terraced units, 2-bed there. There's one of the larger 4-bed units. Again, a different 4-bed unit. 3-bed semi. And this one, I believe, is one of the, yeah, this one contains 4 1-bed flats. This is the materials plan. Overall, there's a good but not overly busy mix of materials on the site. They've been chosen in liaison with officers of the council, but also with discussions with the town and parish councils. The house designs are acceptable, and the mix of sizes, bedroom numbers and styles, as I showed you there were some terrace, there were some semis, there were some 3 beds, 4 beds, 2 beds. There's a good, the exact detailing of which is within the reports, but there is a good mix across the range of sites. The scheme as you see in front of you at the moment, that's just to show materials. You probably can't read the key on that, but it just shows the blue is render, so you can see a lot of the frontage going on to the main link road. That green line, by the way, is Devon hedging, so you've got Devon hedge bank all the way through either side of the link road. You've got a lot of render fronting that in those three different muted colours that have been taken from the East of Oakhampton Master Plan colours, which has been included within the recently adopted SPD. You can see the reds there on some of those key frontage buildings is the stone, and then the orangey colour is brick. Some of them are brick to the rear but rendered to the front, some are wholly brick. So it just gives an idea that there is a mix of materials across that front, but in my view not so many materials that it's too busy for a scheme of this size. But to say the mix of units overall is considered acceptable. There is a requirement from the outline across both parcels 3 and 4 for 20% affordable housing. That was looked at through viability, so that was accepted. This scheme provides 23% AH, so slightly above, but it's expected that that will be offset by a slightly lower provision on parcel 4. That was always expected and is comfortable with officers. This parcel 3 is slightly better connected to town, is a slightly denser development, so it was more appropriate to include a high proportion of the affordable housing on this site. So specialist officers from AH and planning officers are happy with that. Likewise, the size and tenure of those affordable housing units being provided is acceptable and is in accordance with the Section 106 requirements. So just to take you through some photographs, you'll be pleased to know I've nearly finished. The first thing to point out is this is Oakhampton, and these pictures show it doesn't always rain. So again, I've done some artwork in the top to hopefully just give an indication of where I was standing and the orientation of the photograph, particularly for those of you who perhaps don't know the site quite so well. So again, just looking across the site, that quite obvious line of Brightly Stream separates parcel 3 and 4. So as you see the land rise up towards a row of electricity pylons, that's parcel 4. So just a reminder, we're looking at the very lower part of that. Hopefully you can see my arrow there that just takes in this is the large kind of older children kickabout type area. So it's incorporated a part of parcel 4 in order to accommodate that public open space and play area. So here, standing on what is the beginning of the Southern Link Road, again looking at across the site, you can see the TPO very clearly there obviously, and the run of properties onto the Linden development. Sorry, just pointing out that this is the area of land that I was just talking about with regards to the landscape. So although it was hoped that the Beach Avenue could continue down here, it's been accepted that this is part of the highway land and made up land, which is an engineered part of the link road. So that's now being avoided. So again, standing at the end, what's currently the dead end, the terminus of the currently undertaken section, the Hameldown Road Spur, I think it was called, part of the link road, looking straight across the site. You can see where the white sign is opposite there. That's where the roundabout end is currently under construction. And obviously you can see that long boundary to Meldon Fields on the left there. Just as a point of reference, I think leading to the next photograph, you can see that one oak tree in that long row of white properties. There's a photograph from there in a second. Again, this is looking back just towards parcel 4. And the two white pair of semi-detached properties you can see there helpfully show exactly where the road rises out towards North Taunton. That one oak tree you could see in the run of properties on Kellens Lane, perhaps Broome Park by that point. On the Linden development, standing there looking through that space across the site, you can obviously see Brightly Stream row of property trees there. You can see that kind of Coombe Valley going off there to the right, and the Suds Pond obviously directly in front of you. So that helps to kind of gain an understanding of the level difference between the Linden development and the proposed development, and the Linden development being higher. and just an understanding of the relationship between the two, looking from one to the other. Going around the corner then, standing on Crediton Road, looking east or northeast, you can see the Alipad sign on the left there, so that's the edge of parcel 2 you can see currently underway, and the earthworks you can see on the right hand side there are the roundabout section of the link road currently being put in. I think you can just about see the suds pond behind that Harris fencing, but just to show the orientation there and that the roundabout works are well underway. Again, looking across there, you can see the roundabout and the entrance into the link road with the TPO there, sort of 2/3 across on the right, and then the Linden development properties on the right hand side there. So that's looking south across the application site. Just taking you back to this one for reference, really. So overall then, members, the main discussions of all the considerations around this scheme do lie within the report, but in brief, really, this is an allocated site, TTV 14 of the Joint Local Plan. The site benefits from an extant outline which approved the principle of the road and in the region of 400 homes across parcels 3 and 4. This application for 220 houses, 220 dwellings, is therefore the expected quantum of development for parcel 3. The proposal and the applicant has responded to consultee and officer comments where possible and has made several changes to accommodate those. Overall, the proposal is considered to meet the requirements of the allocation policy itself and is considered to be a good quality scheme which has encompassed some good place design with a large amount of public open space and green infrastructure. It's included ecological benefits which are set out within the SPD now, and so it adheres to that. A suitable house design, materials and mix, and as such the recommendation is to delegate to the head of planning to approve subject to the conditions listed, and once the deed of variation substituting the highway plan is agreed and the minor changes to the landscape and open space plans that I referred to earlier are made and updated in the plans list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very comprehensive report and some wonderful art skills. That was a bonus, so thank you. Right, I have Councillor Moyes, Hipsey and Pearce waiting. So Councillor Moyes, please.
Yeah, the top play area which borders the road, obviously there is a hedge there. First of all, is it a high hedge? I'm sorry, I don't know the area very well. And is there any entrance onto the road there?
So through you, Chair, if I may. So are we talking about the play area where my cursor is at the moment?
Yes.
So to the south of that, where that sort of muddy green band is Brightly Stream, and that's got quite a significant tree belt already either side of it.
No,
and
what
then
about the road bit?
Oh, to the road, sorry, this boundary here.
Yeah.
Yes, there is an existing tree belt along that section of the road already.
Right. Is there any entrance onto the road from the play area? And is it thick enough that if boys are kicking a football around, they're not going to go into the road? Or the football isn't going to go into the road?
It is pretty dense. There isn't an access proposed. And also, in order to level this area, because obviously it slopes down at the moment to the stream, I'm sorry, this is the plan I hadn't included, but in order to make that a usable kickabout area, they need to cut and fill that section of the site. So if you can imagine at the moment that boundary there that sits behind that tree line will actually be dug down slightly as well. So not only is there a tree line to the road protecting it, if you like, but this play area will also be slightly set down a slope. There will be a slight embankment on its north side as well to further prevent footballs and things flying into the road.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillors Hipsey, Pearce and Cheadle. So Councillor Hipsey, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair. Can I just refer to your written report, and particularly the sections addressing flood risk assessment? I noticed that both Environment Agency and Devon County had what I consider to be significant objections back in July this year. I wonder if you could just please assure us that they have been addressed now.
Yeah, thank you through you, Chair. Yes, in short, I can assure you of that. In both cases, so as this is a reserved matters, there are some overarching conditions to do with drainage from put onto the outline permission, but there were still some details required with regards to the suds pond details that are before us now, and ensuring that the space and falls and that around those were acceptable, and that any discharge rates into the Brightly stream again were acceptable. So as you say, there were concerns raised on the initial submission, but following that, additional information and calculations were done and submitted, which I think it's set out in the report, that has overcome both the Environment Agency and Devon County as lead local flood authorities concerns, and they've confirmed that they don't need additional conditions on this permission, that the conditions that sit on the outline are robust enough to deal with the remaining minor details.
Splendid, thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, I have Councillor Mott before Councillor Pearce. My apologies, I didn't see your name pop up. So I have Councillor Mott, then Councillor Pearce, Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, please, because with all of the comments that we're all committing to with regard to the current climate crisis, etc., what renewable energy is proposed on scheme? I appreciate we've got the electric charging points, but it's disappointing again to see that there are no solar panels on any of the properties. Are we putting in ground source pumps, for example? What other measures are we putting in for renewable and sustainability, please?
Smith. Henderson Smith, you able to take that?
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I've got I was trying to unmute myself and to try and open the decision notice for the outline. Councillor Mott, so they're not shown at present. There is I know it's detailed in the report, but just for the benefit. So there are 4 points set up for fast charging for public use for electric vehicle charging points. All the properties that have got on-plot parking will have a domestic electric vehicle charging point. Ground source and air source, I think, was explored but has been discounted. But there is a condition on the outline permission which complies with policy and requests, and this is what I just wanted to check, whether it's looking at 10% over and above building control or 10% on-site production of renewable energy. I think it's 10% on-site reduction. I can just have a quick look and check that. So I suspect what will happen here is we'll receive the scheme to discharge that, which will probably include a level of PV panels, as it did on the Hedgerow development opposite. A similar condition sat on there, and when it came to the actual build, the correct quantity or required quantity of electricity was then sort of worked backwards, and PV panels applied to the appropriate properties, and they're now on the site. So I think that's the case here, but I'd just like to double check that condition, if that's all right, whilst perhaps the next question's coming up. Is that okay?
That's fine, and also we do have the actually representative from Barrett with us who's registered to speak, so that is a question that could possibly be posed while you're rooting around.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we could sort of give us a 30-second grace to be able to answer that question when he's doing his 3 minutes, if that's possible, please, Chair. Save me asking again.
Okie dokie. Do you want to pick this one up, Ms. Henderson Smith? I don't know if you realise, but what you've got on your screen is coming up on everybody's screens.
No, that's fine. Just to answer that question then, you might as well see it in first hand, is condition 11 of the outline. It says at least 10% of energy used by the dwellings once constructed shall be generated from decentralised and renewable or low carbon sources, or the development should be constructed so as to be 10% more energy efficient than building regs at the time of approval of reserve matters. So basically they've either got to make it 10% better than building regs through fabric first, or they'll have to produce 10% on site, either of which they'll need to give us a scheme for and approve. So that hopefully answers Councillor Mott's question in terms of what we can enforce, but obviously there's the opportunity for Barrett's to comment on what their aspiration might be for the site.
Thank you. Good to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Henderson Smith. Thank you for your presentation. My questions are, the first one is to do with the play area, which has already been mentioned. I have concerns about the security of play areas when they're near a road or next to a road, and I just wondered just how dense the hedge is going to be there to prevent undesirable people, which we have in our society now, from getting into the play area from the highway, from the road.
That section of vegetation at the moment is quite dense. I can pull up Google Street View if you want to have a look at it, if that would be helpful to members. You know, for those of you who know it, as you dip down, as you do to leave Oakhampton at present, down to Brightly Stream, and you know, have to change gear to get up out of this this section here. It's the area on the right here, and it is quite densely vegetated. In addition to which, as I say, this area here is being dug down. I think it might be helpful if Chair, if you don't mind giving me 10 seconds, really, is if I just open up the plan that shows how this area here is being levelled, because I think it would be helpful to it looks obviously flat on this plan, but it's not. So there will also be an embankment on this side, which again protects the road from the play area, but also the play area from the road, if you like. This play area here, this large linear section, is the kickabout area. So this isn't little tiny kiddies.
No, this would be frozen.
This is kickabout. This is, you know, goalposts and a usable big flat area. This play area you can see on the end would be fenced and is equipped, but again would be sort of older, the next step down, older children, and then the site down here near to the housing would be the littlies, not an official term, but you know, so the age, you would expect the age to kind of reduce with these. But if you would like a bit more clarity on this, apologies for not having got up here to take a photograph, but as you'll be aware, there's no footpath.
Don't worry, I do know that hedgerow quite well, but I just, you know, it is quite thick, but I'm just hoping that it'll be enough to deter people from trying to get through, you know, from the highway.
I think, if I may, I'm sorry for this, how clear this may or may not be on your screens, but there are two pedestrian accesses proposed here across the Brightly Stream. The bridge design's been submitted in full, and the Environment Agency have seen that and have raised no objections.
Right.
And the phasing for the point at which those would be put in, i.e. prior to this public open space being used by residents, it's been agreed and discussed with the developers who are all comfortable that falls with under condition 2, I think it is, of the outline, which requires a phasing scheme. Prior to any commencement on this site, they have to put a phasing scheme in. So the trigger for delivery of public open space and play equipment and that kind of thing would fall within that scheme. Would also obviously ensure that full access in 2 points across here was secured prior to this being completed and brought into use. So you can never obviously guard against every possible desire line people might have, but there isn't really a desired route across here. It would be far easier for people to walk into parcel 3 or come from parcel 3 across into that play area than walk along the highway.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Excuse me. My second question is: can you confirm what the speed limit will be on the link road, please? Or is that would be one for highways?
I would suggest that might be one for highways, if that's okay, Chair, please.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
My other question for you then, if I may, please. Have you had any success in negotiating the painted finish or the paint to be used for the finishes for the units? Because I am very concerned that if we don't use high quality paint on this, we will end up with the staining that occurs in the walls because of the high rainfall in Oakhampton, whereby within 18 months you've got a dreadful colour on the walls of some of the properties. I mean, I would hope that the developers would see it as a can't think of the words I'm looking for now, but as their reputation in producing quality homes to have a decent paint finish on them all.
In answer to that question, yes. Can I just leave it at yes? Would that be okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, yes, I have had a discussion with the developers, and I'm sorry, I was just trying to open my report to tell you which condition it is. One of the conditions in the report before you secures the finish of the buildings, which sets out the colours to be used, and not just the colours to be used, but the exact product to be used.
Right, and
that can be used, and it also secures the use alongside a biocide treatment, which has been used. It's the same developers has been used on the Butcher Hill Park scheme in Tavistock, because obviously we experience the same kind of red leaching problems in Tavistock. So to the best of my ability and to the best of my knowledge, we've achieved a quality product that's been kind of tested in this area alongside the treatment with the biocide to try and prevent that algae and fungus on the properties.
Thank you. I mean, I know it's in the condition, but I just wondered whether there'd be any response from the developers, to that content of that condition. But anyway,
that condition was formulated in discussion with them, with a discussion about what product they were looking to use, which ones they'd had success with, and that use of that was volunteered by them, because, as you say, I think they appreciate the problem and wanted to accommodate concerns that had been raised, but also, as you say, there's a benefit to them if they're looking to be on site for quite some period of time. As we know, it can happen quite quickly, and your show homes can be running by the time you're not even off site. So I think overall that's been sort of mutually beneficial. We've had that discussion, obviously secured that condition. Great.
Okay. Thank you for all your work in bringing this scheme forward.
It's actually condition 3. Mr. Townsend, are you please could you comment on the speed limit for the link road?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, the speed limit would be 30 miles an hour. That's 30 miles an hour. One of the benefits of the revised alignment from the previously fairly straight alignment to the slightly more, I was going to use the word tortuous, but that's not really the right word. It is slightly more curvy going through the site, is that it will restrain vehicle speeds to the anticipated 31-hour speed limit. The Highway Authority were quite concerned that with the straight alignment previously shown on the outline plans, that the vehicle speeds, in spite of the fact that the speed limit would have been 30, would have been a little higher than that and would have given us problems.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have Councillor Cheadle and then Councillor Vachon. So Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. My question is a little chronologically tortuous, but given the report that we are going to look at this afternoon, and the fact that this application, the proposal is that it will be for a delegated decision, can I be assured that whatever recommendations emerge from the report this afternoon, this application will be run past those recommendations to make sure it complies with the recommendations of that report?
Is this one for Mr. Fairbairn, I think?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm sure that will be the case. You are at the end of the day delegating the decision today based on a set criteria, and should those criteria change to the point where there's material difference or make material difference to the decision, then of course it would be appropriate for it to be referred back should that happen. Otherwise, we'll be looking to involve members in some other way. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just come back on that, please?
Yep.
It wasn't quite the question I was hoping to ask. What I meant was that there will be several recommendations out of this afternoon's report about how major applications are determined and the processes used. And I just wanted to be assured that this proposal would be subject to those recommendations.
I think the answer, Chairman, is some of the recommendations will require further approvals by other committees or working groups, but where the recommendations can be applied immediately, then of course they will. But if they require approval from external bodies, then before they're implemented, then that's another matter. Given that this matter has already gone through committee, is being considered today, does give a form of approval by members. And as I say, the only circumstances I think in those that it would therefore come back to members is if there was a material change which resulted in the decision or being likely to affect the decision. Okay, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Weimer, I don't know if you wanted to add any comment regarding the change to the Section 106 that's been proposed.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think this is slightly. I think this scenario is slightly different to the one that's been discussed this afternoon, in that there's an outline consent on the site that was approved by the Development Management and Licensing Committee. This is a reserve matters again, which is in front of you, so it is going to be determined by members. And the only reason we are seeking a delegated authority is simply so that in terms of the Section 106, is simply so that the plan on the right of the screen is substituted into the 106 as opposed to the plan on the left of the screen. That is the only change. So I don't think there's anything else that would be likely to cause any difficulties for members, and they're in front of they're all in front of you now.
So the time frame, the actual contributions, all those sorts of things aren't being looked at. It is purely the route.
Yeah, the only change to the 106 is the route of the link road for clarity. All of the other terms and conditions of the 106 stay exactly as they were agreed and signed at the outline stage. This is the only change, and the only other minor issue was a slight change to detailing on the open space plans that have been asked for by the specialist concerned and have been agreed by the developer. So no, there are no other changes to the Section 106 at all.
Okay, Councillor Cheadle, happy with that one?
Yeah, thank you.
Lovely, thanks. And Councillor Basham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson-Smith. It's a very comprehensive report. Just going back to the play area, I wonder, could you put the previous slide up with the green map? I've noticed that there is, it's the previous one to that. That's the one, thank you. I've noticed that in the play area, we talked about access, getting to it from the main estate below, crossing the river, and then the path goes right up and then around on the inside of the Devon Bank hedge there. next to the Crediton Road. But if you enlarge that map up, I've noticed that a section of that path actually comes out onto the Crediton Road itself, just above the tree line, above the river there. I'm just wondering, is that quite a dangerous point for that path to actually come out onto Crediton Road, especially as that's the bend and the steep bend and the descent down to the bridge. I'm just wondering if that was deliberate, or because there's no path along Crediton Road at that point, or what was the reason for that section coming out onto Crediton Road? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. As you can see from the plan that's currently on screen, this is, if you like, the first phase of the wider development. It is expected that Parcel 4 will come in for full application in the fairly close future. The expectation is that some sort of link will be required into that play space from that northern portion of Parcel 4. So I think what I would be ensuring within the phasing scheme that I mentioned that sits within the outline permission, condition 2, I think, is that wasn't delivered, that access was not delivered until such time as it had a counterpart on the other side of the road. Obviously, you're quite right. At the moment, you wouldn't want to see that access put in, that pedestrian access into that play area, because there isn't a corresponding pavement or a crossing point or anything else. But what we wouldn't want to do is sterilise that so that there is no access into that play space or any permeability into there as and when Parcel 4 comes forward. It may be that Phil Townsend from Highways has something to add to what I've just said, but as I say, it's not expected that that's required at the moment, and I think we could probably prevent that coming forward, or I know we could prevent that coming forward until such time as it's got a suitable point of egress onto Crediton Road, but at the same time we wouldn't want to not factor that in at this point, otherwise you end up with it being completely contained and inaccessible from Parcel 4.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend, did you wish to add anything?
I could add nothing to that. That was perfectly described by Ms. Henderson-Smith. That's exactly how I see it too.
Thank you. Councillor Vashon, does that answer your question?
It does. I mean, providing that is obviously blocked off before the Parcel 4 is built, and I can understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more questions in the chat, so I'm now going to turn to our registered speaker, which is Mr. Jobson of Barrett David Wilson Homes. Mr. Jobson, can you just speak so I can confirm we can hear you and you can hear us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Now, as I think you've probably already been advised, but this is because we have members of the public who are watching on YouTube, so that they are as aware, and as a gentle reminder to yourself, you do have 3 minutes in which to speak. We have, I think it's Mr. White will be keeping the time, and he will just interject 30 seconds before your time is up, so you'll know to start wrapping up. And after that, if members have any questions, then they will be able to ask them of you just for clarity. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Would you like me to turn my camera on as well, or is that
you are welcome to do so, but if you think that it's going to cause internet problems for yourself, then it is entirely up to you. You're welcome to turn your camera on, but there's absolutely no obligation for you to do so. And when you're ready, your time will start when you start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for agreeing to listen to me today. I'm Ben Jobson. I'm the Senior Land Manager for Barrett Homes. I've worked with the company for a total of 8 years, and I have the great responsibility of conveying to you the passion and enthusiasm our team put into all of our developments. We're presenting to you today a reserve matters scheme for Oakmont Park, which will deliver 220 dwellings immediately adjacent to the existing built settlement on a site that has outline approval for up to 400 dwellings and which is identified for development as part of the wider East of Oakhampton allocation. At Barrett, creating great places for our customers to live in and the wider communities to enjoy is a core business priority for us. This is reflected in the fact we are the only 5-star house builder for 11 years in a row. That means that over 90% of our customers would recommend us again year in, year out for 11 years. We are always striving to design developments through the best placemaking principles that will encourage health and well-being through green spaces for enjoyment and safe pedestrian cycle lanes that are easy to navigate to get towards services such as bus stops and support amenities within the local area. This plays a part in reducing car dependency, which can help with climate change, supporting local shops and bus services, providing investment into local communities that in turn support jobs. Through this development, we will place multi-million-pound build contracts that in turn will support the employment of some of the local community. We are also committed to training and investing in the next generation, and as such are one of the country's leading apprentice champions. Whilst we are a national company, this development will be delivered through our Exeter office, where the workforce is from the Southwest, and we are all committed to keeping up the motto, Southwest is best. Further to all of this, we will also be providing green areas that will enhance biodiversity. We are focused on designing homes that respect the local character of the communities that we are part of, considering how people will live in their homes, how they can enjoy their gardens, what they look out onto and how safe they feel. Designing developments that prevent crime in mind, the current climate and COVID has shown just how important designing for health and well-being is. At Barratt, we have put this at the heart of our Oakmont Park scheme and the decisions we have made along this application process. Obviously, the process has been running throughout this COVID period, so it's really at the forefront of our minds. Liaising collaboratively with consultees included, but not limited to, the Environment Agency, Devon County Council Highways Department. Okay. And taking into consideration all the various consultee responses, we worked really hard to secure those. One of the key things that our development is going to bring forward is this link road that's already been discussed, and Ms Henderson-Smith covered it fantastically. We're really keen to bring that forward as early as possible, so we seek to deliver that really quickly to ensure that that connectivity is made. We're also committed to making a large number of additional benefits, the EV, the electric vehicle charging points. We're committing to putting bat, bird and bee boxes within all of the houses, which again is over and above what the requirements are. Bringing forward affordable housing early is a real key priority for us. Bringing forward
Please can I ask you just to wind up with your last sentence, please? Your time is up.
Okay. I mean, my last sentence really is just to say a massive thank you to everybody that's been involved. We've really enjoyed the sort of the collaborative approach on this and considering everybody's opinions and factoring those into our development with our kind of revised plans and so on. And just to say thank you very much for listening. A very quick room tour on what we're all about, and yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Jobson. And I'm going to ask Councillor Mott to repeat her question because I didn't actually write it down, and I want to make sure I get it right. So, Councillor Mott, are you able to repeat your question, please?
Thank you. Probably not word for word, Chair, as to what it was previously. So I guess my question would really be in how you plan to meet condition 11 of the 8-line application, other than the provision of the electric charging points, please.
Yeah, of course. So we've got a number of kind of strategies, and we've involved key consultants. So just let me pull up some information I have on this that can give you some more or greater detail rather. We've commissioned Sol Environment to prepare an energy and sustainable statement, which has formed and informed us. To achieve the requirements within the condition 11, we've incorporated a number of aspects: passive design measures, well insulated and airtight fabric, so this kind of fabric first approach, high efficiency gas fueled heating systems, and finally photovoltaic panels or PV panels as the provision of supplementary renewable energy generation. So there's going to be a mix of all of these things to help meet the 10% reduction that the condition requires. And obviously, you know, the PV locations will be informed obviously by house orientations to maximize their efficiencies, and combined with the fabric first, as well as we call it, so kind of enhancing, as we say, the insulation and other of the build aspects of the houses that ensure that those houses meet those requirements and even go beyond those requirements.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other members have any other questions? It would appear not. So thank you very much indeed for your time, Mr. Jobson.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to sit in and listen and wait till we get to the vote. Next, we would have is Councillor Leech, actually, who's the ward member. Councillor Leech, as you know, you do have 5 minutes if you wish to use all that time, and your time will start when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try not to take 5 minutes. I'm glad I've seen the presentation because it is actually giving me far more literally detail about some of the consultations that have been going on, which is certainly more than I've seen to date. I'd also like to thank the developer, who has made every effort to cover all the concerns that have been put forward by the town and parish councils, local residents and local members. I think we all appreciate how much time this has taken everybody. But I do have a few concerns, and there's certainly still some outstanding concerns from residents, mainly about the new road, and for some also whether the land should have been earmarked for this development at all. But of course it's gone through many stages, and it is what it is. But for the whole development, I think what we must start to look at very carefully, and I think we have, is that we have to remember that it will need to be incorporated into our wonderful Devon countryside, and that it is also very close to Dartmoor, something I fear has been overlooked on some occasions in the past. But the link road, or the indicative route for the link road, as has been said in the presentation, was to run from almost straight with a slight curve all the way along the front of the Linden Homes development. And I've been pushing for many years, Devon County Council and others, to make sure that this road was actually built well in advance of any other building in the area, because that certainly would have helped alleviate traffic problems in the town and taken traffic off some of the local minor roads. Unfortunately, all that to no avail. And then up until recently, I've always said that that road must come first. We've now been led to believe that the houses along the frontage, the Linden Home houses that fronted onto where the road was going to go, haven't been brought up to a standard when it comes to sound insulation, which for me that's a big concern. I'd love to know who was supposed to be responsible for that, but I guess we'll never know now. The proposed layout should rectify this problem, but it is being seen by some locals and certainly some officials that will now just be an estate road, and we need to make it very clear that this will just be an alternative route to the original indicative route. I'm very pleased to see that what's proposed is a beech tree lined avenue, which will define it as, I was going to call it a trunk road, but a main road through this development. I do have a slight concern about the phasing of the road and the fact that, as far as I can see, we don't have anything signed and sealed under the 106 contributions for this. I think the developers said, I've only heard it verbally, that they now expect to phase it. So the road is open somewhere between the 50th and the 70th house occupied. For me, that sounds still a bit woolly. I'd like to see some specific timescales put on getting that road open, because it's absolutely imperative with the development of Hedgerow, ADPAT, and this development all going on at the same time. Means that all traffic to and from the site, those sites, will be up and down Credit Road and back through the town to get to Exeter Road. So it's imperative this particular road comes quickly. Drainage is also still a concern for me and others. Going back 12 years plus, I suppose it is now, residents and
Councillor Leech, I'm going to need to wind you up, please, if you would. You've had your 5 minutes, so could you just come to the end of your sentence, please?
That's a quick 5 minutes I've gone through.
Okay, all right.
I'll have to jump over that. I've just heard the expression Oakland Park. That's the first time I've heard that. I am a bit concerned as to whether that represents that part of the town. But overall, I'm happy with the whole estate as it's being put forward, and I would recommend, subject to the agreements that still need to be signed off and the conditions shown in the report, that the committee accepts this application.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I just ask if members have any questions of Councillor Leech, I'm just going to ask Ms Henderson-Smith just to come in regarding the phasing of the road delivery, because I think that is actually secured already in the section 106. Are you able to respond to that?
I am, Chair. Thank you very much. Yes, just off the back of that. So the trigger points for the delivery of the link road in its entirety, from the green section roundabout through to the pink section that's already there, as you can see on plan in front of you, has been secured through the section 106 that accompanied the outline. For members' benefit, the triggers in sort of plain English are that the roundabout, so the bit you can see in green there, has to be completed prior to the commencement of parcel 3. There shall be no commencement on parcel 3 until a part 1 certificate, which I believe is a highways issue, has been issued for that roundabout. The roundabout and the first section, which is the orange section you can see in front of you, have to be completed prior to first occupation of any unit on parcel 3. So that's the roundabout, and the orange section will be prior to first occupation of any unit. And then the second section, which would be the completing section, so the blue section, has to be completed, and the entire Southern Link Road open for public use prior to occupation of the 100th unit or 50% of the units, whichever sooner. So if this application is approved by members, then the 100th unit would be the earlier trigger based on the 220 units. So at the moment, in short, what you've got is a secured, tied down through the 106 situation, where the link road you can see before you in its entirety, from the roundabout all the way through to the road that's currently in place, would need to be completed and open to the public prior to the occupation of the 100th unit on parcel 3. So that's less than 50% of the units being proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey, you had a question for Councillor Leech.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Leech, thank you for your summary, and really appreciate that as the ward member and somebody who clearly knows the land in that general area. I think you very briefly mentioned the word drainage, which caught my attention. I don't think you really had time to elaborate on that, but I wonder if you have any real overall concerns about drainage in the area, please.
Yes, I was concerned during County Council Environment Agency were also showing concerns right from the start. I will just give a quick update if the Chair will allow. Going way back, they were concerned because any changes in that area could have a big effect to Brightly further down the stream, which can get flooded now. Also, this field, according to the farmers, and has improved in certain areas of the field, has quite deep peat. And if you start to affect that peat, then that is going to have an effect, because it's basically the sponge for that section of the valley, because the whole thing falls down to that point. So I'm just hoping and praying that Devon County Council, all the experts and the Environment Agency have got this right, especially with the peat, because I noticed that the sewage pipe was going to have to be possibly moved. When it was originally laid, it was laid first, and then within weeks had to be relaid because it had sunk into the peat. So yes, I do have concerns, but as long as we've got it right, that's the main thing.
Thank you. Anybody, any other questions for Councillor Leech? No, it looks like not. So thank you very much indeed for your time there, Councillor Leech. So now we'll need to move into debate. So I'm actually now going to move the recommendation as laid out on page 2 of your agenda papers. Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vachon. Members, we are now in debate. If anybody wishes to speak, could you indicate in the chat box? Just give members a few seconds. I know it can take a while to type and think at the same time. Councillor Vachon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite pleased with this, actually, because of all the problems we've had in the past, and it's great that there's been so much consultation regarding design of the houses, coloration, etc., etc. The problem we always saw with the last phase on Broome Park was the actual the White Cliffs of Oakhampton, as it was called, as we drove down from the Crediton Road into the town. But this development will actually hide an awful lot of that. And I think with the coloration and fabric of the buildings, this will make a pleasant change to that viewpoint from the Crediton Road. I think it's very, very well thought out. The link road situation, which will only be triggered after the 100th occupation of the house. Of course, that link road is vital to actually build most of those properties anyway. So I think a great section of that will be put in prior to that anyway. Counting up the properties, yes, you can just about make out 100 on either side of the central section, but I think that you'll find that that link road will be necessary to actually to build those properties in the centre. But overall, I think this is a very good solution. Although we don't really need more building houses in Oakhampton, we've always objected to that. But I feel this is a very good solution, and the plan looks very good. So I will be in agreement with the proposal on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vachon. I have Councillor Crozier and then Councillor Hipsey. So Councillor Crozier.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit concerned. I agree with the feeder road to the roundabout is going through the estate, but I'm a little bit surprised that it's been suggested that a 30-mile-an-hour limit, because one of the things as councillors we're always up against is people speeding through inhabited areas. Putting another one in, and I thought the general consensus was to move towards 20-mile-an-hour limits I don't know if the highways officer would like to make a further comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor Crozier. Mr. Townsend, did you wish to? I know 20-mile-an-hour limits aren't necessarily enforceable, are they? But did you wish to make a response to that?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we have to bear in mind that this road is actually supposed to perform the function of a link road between two B-class roads. Whereas I advocate the use of lower design speeds in residential cul-de-sac, this is designed to perform a distributor function as well. Therefore, I would have to say that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in this particular instance would be inappropriate. The realignment of the road off its straighter route, I suspect the previous straighter route would have had vehicle speeds probably as high as 40 miles an hour along it, which did alarm me and concern me greatly. So that is why the realignment to a more curvy route has comforted me to think that the vehicle speeds will be more appropriate for the residential development. I mean, the bottom line here is if everybody stuck to a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, we wouldn't need 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. And certainly in this particular situation here, 30 mile an hour is the appropriate speed for the road that passes through the site.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
Thanks, Chair. I have to say I share Councillor Crozier's concern about the safety aspects of the road snaking its way through the development. Otherwise, I think the general idea of everything we've been presented with is acceptable, but that's the one thing that concerns me. I'm thinking of, for instance, children in the more southwesterly part of the development. In order to access the play areas to the northeast, are going to have to cross that road somewhere. I don't know if perhaps Mr. Townsend can inform us as to whether there are any crossing facilities or proposed there. But I would like to kind of emphasise the fact that survival rates in 20-mile-an-hour collisions are significantly lower than they are at 30. The statistics that I've seen are that one stands something like a 90% chance of avoiding serious injury at 20 miles an hour. The corresponding figure for 30 is more like 50%. I am concerned about the safety of people crossing that road, particularly children, as I said, moving from one area to the other in order to use the play areas.
Thank you. Ms. Townsend or Ms. Henderson-Smith, not sure which one. Did you wish to comment regarding crossings?
I think you'll find that there's I'm sorry, thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's actually a point that Ms. Henderson-Smith has included in the report about crossings. There will be crossings throughout the length of the road, although they're not shown specifically where it is anticipated people will cross. There will not be a light controlled or controlled crossing, because that tends to focus the crossing to one point, and it means that it's unlikely that they will be used, because people will be able to go across the road at any point along its travel. They will be installed at the location where there is adequate visibility for pedestrians to cross the road safely. And although I understand entirely the councillor's concern about 20-mile-an-hour speed limits and their suitability, it's still reliant upon people actually complying with them. And certainly the alignment of the previous road would not have would not have led to vehicles sticking to a lower speed. The alignment of this current road means that vehicles are much more likely to be travelling at an appropriate speed through a residential area.
Thank you. And in fact, yes, the reference to uncontrolled crossings is at the top of page 16 in the officer's report. Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Apologies noted. Did anybody else wish to speak? Okay, if not, then I think we are going to take this to the vote, please. So what we have before us, well, you've seen the recommendation, is to for delegated authority subject to conditions. and I'm just getting back up to the recommendation again. Trouble with the digital world, it's just not straight in front of you. Okay, yes, the recommendation is for delegated authority to the head of development management, subject to completion of acceptable deed of variation to section 106. So I will now ask, I think it's Mrs. Hall, will confirm that each councillor, you'll need to just confirm you're present and then take the vote for, against or abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, can you just confirm that you were present and have heard all of the debate? Thank you. Councillor Cheadle.
Yep, I heard all the debate and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
I also heard all of the debate and I recommend the officer's decision.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I too was here for the whole debate and I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
I could confirm that I was present for the entire debate and presentation and support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
I support the officer recommendation and confirm that I was here for the whole of the report.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I can confirm that I heard the whole of the presentation and the debate and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
I can also confirm that I heard all of the debate and I am for the council's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Vachon.
Here throughout.
Councillor Vachon. You're
Sorry,
breaking up.
Unmuted. Here throughout the presentation and for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Yelland.
Confirm here throughout and for.
Thank you. So we have nine for, so that's a unanimous vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that is approved. Thank you all very much indeed for that, and to Mr. Jobson for your time in coming into the meeting today. We will need to move straight on to our next application because members of the public will have been probably thinking that we've been starting on it at 11:15. So just for the avoidance of doubt, for those who are listening in, we are now moving on to application number 062920 ARM, which is at Biddicombe, 31 Park Road, Hatherley, and I will now pass over to Ms. Hauslander to present a report. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, thank you. Just before I depart, I have closed down the presentation and Ms. Hauslander will be having to open it. So apologies if there's a 2-minute delay while she just has to reopen her end to present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do seem to have gremlins running around the system again. Just ask people just to be patient for a moment, please. Ms. Hauslander's having some difficulty getting into the meeting, so just bear with us for a few seconds, please.
Chair, while IT is sorting things out, would it be possible to have a 5-minute comfort break, please?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's. I think that might be, sounds like it might be possible. Okay, but if we can reconvene back here, well, it's 11:17 now, so well, 11:22 then, please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I think well, I can see myself, so I'm assuming I'm in.
You are indeed.
Hi, Jackie. There's a
Sorry.
comfort break, Jackie. We're resuming at 22 minutes. 22 minutes past, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I just wanted to make sure I logged in correctly because I wasn't being able to. So thank you.
Yes, you are logged in, and if you wanted to get your presentation up ready,
Yes,
we can.
I will. Yeah.
We'll need to do the roll call again at 22 minutes past if we've had a break, but
okay.
And then you'll be ready to go. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I didn't mean to speak over you. I didn't realise you were still there.
Okay, members, it's 11:22, so hopefully everybody is back. I think because we've had to have a brief break that we will need to take the roll call again, just again to confirm that all members are present and that we are quorate. So over to Ms Hall that was doing this, I believe. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Cheadle.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Vashon.
Here.
Thank you. And Councillor Yield.
Present and can hear. Thank you. Okay, so to our objector and agent and members of the public, I apologise that you had a wait, but obviously we do need to give each application our full attention, which we wish to do so, and we would never want to finish one early to push another forward on time. So I trust that you will understand that. So over to you, Ms Houselander. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Great,
Yes.
thank you. Before I start my presentation, I just wanted to provide members with an update. We had a late letter of a presentation raising some concerns about some of the accuracies in the report. So I've spent some time looking at that, and I just want to clarify that with members now, please. First of all, there was one reference to the conservation area boundary, and I had said in my report it was to the south and east, and in fact it is actually to the south and west. So that just wanted to clear that one up. Also, the letter raised concerns that I hadn't accurately represented the range of objections to the development proposed. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of those, if that's okay. First of all, the report describes the site from one objector as being an unspoiled meadow. I refer to it in the report as unspoiled wildflower meadow, and there was an additional part to that sentence which says we should also be concerned about the mature hedgerow and abundant wildlife. I felt that my comment had covered that, but in fact I wanted to make sure that members were clear that it was the wildlife as well as the landscape value of the site that the objector was referring to. Another objection which was suggested I hadn't clearly demonstrated in the report was that the viability of the hedgerow when it became a residential curtilage as opposed to an agricultural curtilage. I did, obviously the ancient hedgerow has been mentioned and its value has been mentioned a number of times in the representation section, but there was some sort of technical detail about the potential for the root system of the hedge to be affected during construction and indeed post-construction. I have actually put proposed a condition on the consent with regard to the hedgerow, so I'm hoping that will deal with that issue ultimately if the planning application is approved. There's a third issue with regard to parking. I think there is mention of the fact that whether there was enough space on the site for 2 cars per dwelling. There is mention of the parking situation within the officer report. I'm going to go into detail, and there's some question as to whether or not the properties are 3-bedroomed or indeed 4 or 5-bedroomed. In the report, I've addressed that issue by looking at the plans and identifying that there is the ability to park 2 cars per dwelling, but also possibly 3 cars per dwelling if it were needed, if the dwelling was used as 4 bedrooms as opposed to 3. And there was also some question about whether or not I should have mentioned the construction company's name in the planning report. It's not normal practice to do so, which is why I just referred to it as the construction company. But we don't normally refer to their names ordinarily. I also wanted to clarify Hatherley Town Council comments. There were obviously some comments received by us to the originally submitted scheme for this application, and I mixed. It looks like in the report I've mixed them mixed them up. So I just want to clarify for members' sake what the current concerns of the parish council are. The first concern is the fact that the dwellings are too large for the plot and would have a detrimental impact on both the street scene and the landscape. The second concern was with regard to the visibility display and how much hedge would be removed. And the third concern, again, is over parking issues with two large dwellings and the potential for parking to spill onto Park Road. One of the other issues that has come up through this letter, the late letter of objection, is the heights of the dwellings, particularly plot 1. As members will have read in the planning report, plot 1 originally was a smaller footprint dwelling than plot 2. However, since the revisions to the plans, since the re-advertisement in July, both plots are now the same but mirrored on the site. So the footprint of both plots is now the same, and so the footprint of plot 1 is slightly bigger than it was previously. However, the height of the plot 1 in the original submitted plans for this application was 8 metres, and as it had a much steeper pitched roof on it, and the current height of plot 1 is 7.2 metres. And that's just for clarification, members. There is also a question about the visibility display and the length of it, which hopefully I'll deal with in the presentation. But if there are any questions afterwards, then by all means ask. So I'll just carry on with my presentation now, if that's acceptable.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the application site. It's hatched red on the plan, as you can see.
We can't actually see your presentation.
Oh, can't you?
No, we can see you.
You see me? You can't see my presentation? Oh,
we can't see your presentation, no.
Hang on a second. What am I doing here? Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, it's now just coming up.
Yeah.
It can take just a split second sometimes if when you move mouse and things like that for it to be reflected on member screens, so just be aware of that.
Thank you. So, as I say, this is the application site. It's the lower half of this, my laser pointer on, the lower half of this big field here, so it's just this area in here. And this is, I wanted to, for members that maybe are not familiar with this part of West Devon, I just wanted to put Hatherley, if you like, in context. So I just wanted to point out Oakhampton here to the north of Oakhampton and to the east of Highhampton, just so that members are aware of where it is within the district. Okay. And this is an image of, apologise for the B&B type images on here, but this is the village of Hatherley, and the site is here identified by the blue arrow. It's just in that area of land there. Sorry, my mouse is wandering. And again, that's the site in more detail. This is the current proposed layout for the site. It's 2 plots, same size and design. There's an access off Park Road, which is here, and this provides a little bit of land here provides access to the field behind. And there's 2 plots with 2 parking spaces per plot in between each of them, and this access road serves both plots with an element at the end here to be able to turn and reverse and return and exit in a forward direction. This is the existing hedgerow, although it's shown here as pushed back, so it comes down to this area here currently. This is just the site in a bit more detail. Shows the grassed areas at the back. There is a retaining wall in some areas, which you can see here and back down here and across here and also here, because the site slopes from the road upwards, both northwards and eastwards. Okay. Okay, sorry. So this is I haven't put both plots up because they're exactly the same, bar the fact that they've got slightly different external finishes, but the design is exactly the same. It shows a 1.5 story dwelling, rooms in the roof, and this is the feeds and pointers gone. So just bear with me, sorry. So this is the front elevation here, and the side elevation, 2 side elevations. This is the rear elevation. The rear elevation has got double doors out to a balcony. This is the elevation facing into the field, so northwards effectively. Sorry, my mouse is playing up at the moment on 2 screens, so it won't go to the other screen. There we go. So this is the floor layout. There's a kitchen area here, dining room, lounge, study, utility room, and downstairs bathroom. That's on the ground floor, and this is on the first floor. And there's been some mention by people concerned about the application that it's actually a 5-bedroomed house, because this is 1 bedroom, 2nd bedroom, 3rd bedroom, with a ensuite bathroom facility here, and this area is described as a family room, but I guess it could also be used as a bedroom, as the 4th bedroom, and the suggestion that it might study downstairs might also be used as a bedroom. So, but at the moment the application is proposed as having this area as a family room. Okay, so this slide shows the dwellings within the context, if you like, of Park Road. So here you'll see number 31 Park Road, known as Biddicombe, and then the two application dwellings. So this is plot 1, plot 2, and then Daisies, which is the dwelling further up Park Road at a higher level. And as you can see, there's been some concern about the height, but from my perspective, I think the dwellings step up the hill quite proportionately. Must be borne in mind that the site internal of the hedge ranges from about 1 metre to 2.5 or 3 metres internally higher than the level of the road. So these dwellings will appear higher because they're on they're on higher land. I think that's all that I need to say with regard to this one. Oh, there was also some concern raised about the fact that the hedgerow along the front has recently been trimmed, so that this plan on the lower part of the slide may not be completely accurate because the hedgerow has been trimmed back down, and so more of the dwellings may be visible as a result of that. So this is a section through the site. The top part, basically just showing, again, as I was saying to you, about the difference in levels. So this is the road level, this is a person standing in the road level, and this is the level, the ground level within the site. And it just shows that it's going to be quite difficult for you to be able to see the dwellings from the road level because of the height of the hedge and the difference in height between the site and the road. And that just shows where that section is gone through. So it's through plot 2. And this is another section. This is through plot 1. A similar person standing in a road. These are the 2 dwellings opposite, Pathfield and Hillside. And again, this is the site. And if someone was standing in the road, it would be very difficult for them to see the dwellings as shown. This is a plan showing a visibility a plan that was submitted at the outline stage, which showed a reduced reduction in the hedgerow due to the fact that the highway officer had allowed the visibility display to be taken to the centre point of the road as opposed to the hedge line, which would ordinarily be the case. And this is the visibility line that is indicated, which results in a much reduced area of ancient hedgerow being removed as a result of the change. And then this following plan is that same line indicated that was on the outline permission, and then a slightly wider one if it were to go to the centre of the road further along the line, along the hedgerow. We can refer to this if we need to later on when we discuss the visibility display. So we've now got some photographs of, first of all, just of the site. So this is the existing access to the site, and this is where the access would be retained, and the dwellings would sit on the site in this sort of location here, because the access road would be coming up at this point. This is looking in the opposite direction, so the access is down here, and this is the front hedge, Park Road on the other side of this hedge, and so the access road would be coming here, and the dwellings would be sited in this area here. So this is looking from the upper part of the site down. These are the two properties opposite, and it's fairly self-explanatory. This is the sort of area where the dwellings would be. Again, this is on the lower side of the site, again looking down to where the dwellings would be immediately in front of the photograph. This is looking east towards Daisies, and just basically to show the slope eastwards on the site. This is a closer up view of the hedgerow, and as I said, this has been trimmed in recent weeks. Again, similar photograph, the second one on the site. You can just see Biddicombe, which is the house below the site, and the rest of Hatherley beyond. And again, the hedgerow details. These next photographs are views of the site from Park Road. So this again is the entrance just here, with the hedgerow running towards the east and the road coming down. As you can see, the road's quite narrow. This is the entrance to the two properties on the other side of the road. Again, this is the access, showing the site beyond. This is looking westwards from Park Road, with the site on your right hand side. Again, slightly clearer version. And this is as you go, and the road slightly curves around to as you go past the terraced houses further down Park Road. These are views from Jubilee Walk. Jubilee Walk was initially a concern, an area where people were concerned about the impact of the dwellings. So these are a series of views from Jubilee Walk as you get further down the walk. This is sort of near the top of the Jubilee Walk. I've put the red line on just to show the proposed boundary to the rear gardens. It's sometimes it's quite difficult to be absolutely and 100% accurate on a photograph, but I've tried to make it as accurate as I can. And then again, this is slightly further along, so you get a sort of more looking down on the site view. And then the line there indicates and this is the access into the upper part of the field. This again is looking at the site from slightly further down Jubilee Walk. These trees, obviously, to a degree, do provide some degree of screening from this view of the two sites. And again, the site with daisies. If the plots are slightly in front of the daisies bungalow there. Again, site just identified. And from here, the site is in here, disguised at the moment by these trees as you look across. And that's the end of my presentation. So effectively, the application was originally submitted an outline in 2018, and that outline was granted consent in 2019. At that time, the outline granted just the principle, so nothing else was considered at that stage. It was considered as as a principle only. There were some discussions that took place in the outline, which did indicate that the highways officer might be prepared to accept a reduced visibility by putting the visibility into the centre line of the road, and a plan, as I showed you at the end of my slides before the photographs, indicated where that might be, which resulted effectively in quite a bit less of the ancient hedgerow being removed. The application, therefore, currently before you, had to consider scale, layout, access, landscaping, and appearance, which the report fully addresses in terms of this proposal. The application, in my view, is acceptable. It is going to be visible. There is no doubt about that. However, the principle of development on this site has already been established. So this is to agree whether or not the details that you have are acceptable to you. I am aware that there's lots of local concerns about the proposal, and there has been quite a lot of written concern about the heights of the dwellings. I just wanted to clarify the heights with you, because there's been some discussion about the fact that that plot 1 is actually got higher, but in fact I've measured the plans, and the original dwelling that was going to go on plot 1 was 8 meters in height approximately, and then the applicant decided to change the design of that one to mirror plot 2, and in doing so the height of plot 1 is now 7.2 meters in height, so it's been reduced by approximately 800 millimeters. I checked these measurements this morning to make sure that they were correct, so that you had the correct information before you. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I have questions from so far Councillor Moyes and Councillor Cheadle. So Councillor Moyes.
Thank you. Is the hedge on the tithe map?
I don't know if that's the case. No, I don't know.
Because are there not some sort of regulations about taking down a hedge that is on the tithe map?
There may well be regulations under the hedge.
Sorry.
We've lost Mrs. Houslander. Better just give her a moment to wait while she comes back online.
Did you catch that?
No, you disappeared. Totally.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, you froze up. We assumed you'd dropped out actually. So
sorry.
Be kind enough to reply that one again.
Yes, I will. Sorry. So there is hedgerow legislation, which does exist, which does protect hedgerows from development and/or destruction or whatever. And if the applicants do or have done anything that is contrary to that legislation, then there are means under that legislation where they can be, I don't know if it's prosecuted, but they can be held to account.
Yeah, I just thought it was slightly different if it was on a tithe map, but anyway, I'll let that ride. The lighting, presumably there aren't any street lights along there. I live in a small... Sorry?
I think there might be one just on the just halfway up that telegraph pole, just there.
Ah, right.
I think there is one there. It looks a bit like one.
Yeah. I was just wondering whether no external lighting actually meant that they couldn't have a security type light that came on when you went into the properties. But if there's a lamp there, then that presumably would cover that anyway.
And the condition is aimed not really they wish to, put a light, a security light, then that may be acceptable, but the condition requires that they need to come to us to ask us rather than just do it.
Yes, I realise
So
that.
so we would, if it was acceptable, it would be okay, I think.
And finally, slightly lesser point, are 5-bedroomed houses necessary in Hatherley? I think we have to accept that these could become 5 bedrooms.
Yeah. I don't know specifically, but I can have a quick look if that's acceptable to you. I'll just have a quick look and see what the requirement is for Hatherley. I think in the report, I think there were some need for slightly bigger houses in Hatherley.
Right, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Haslands is looking that one up. Mr. Weimer just wanted to come in a second.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's simply to do with the tide map question. My recollection is that whether it's shown on the tide map is one of the key issues around whether it then deems to be a hedgerow that's protected under the hedgerow protection legislation. However, just to be clear, that protection doesn't apply to hedgerows that are boundaries to residential curtilage. So once the hedgerow becomes part of the garden area, then my recollection is the hedgerow regulations wouldn't apply to it, because they don't when it's a residential hedge.
Thank you.
I just remember in Walkhampton we had a bit of a hullabaloo because the hedge was taken down, but then perhaps that didn't go against a garden. Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Hasland, are you able to respond regarding
Yes,
housing needs? Thank you.
I've just checked on the Office of National Statistics data sheets that we have, and there is actually a shortage of the larger dwellings and larger detached dwellings in Hatherley, and there's an oversubscription, if you like, of 2-bedroom terrace dwellings.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Cheadle, then Councillor Ratcliffe, and then Councillor Vachon. So Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, in the outline permission, there was a discussion in the officer's report about these 2 proposed buildings being bungalows, and the officer's conclusion to that was that was reasonable because they would be lower and therefore set in the landscape. These are clearly not bungalows, and I just wondered if it's simply a matter of sort of one planning officer's view against another, that in the outline report they're recommended to be bungalows, and in your report they're not.
Yes, okay, thank you. The outline application officer's report did indeed indicate that low profile bungalows may be the most appropriate form of development on this site. However, there were no conditions put on the outline specifying that. So when I came to look at this application, I obviously had a look at the outline, and in fact the illustrative plans that were submitted with the outline application, whilst not approved documents, did actually indicate a 1.5 story dwellings, so effectively a bungalow with rooms in the roof, if you like, dormer bungalows, however you want to describe them. So when I reviewed the application and it was along these lines, I felt that was reflecting what was in the outline planning application, and actually I don't think that the use of 1.5 story dwellings causes any more harm than a bungalow would on this site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. The outline application drawings, sort of EXE 1 and 4, do not show any dimensions and they don't show any levels. The reserve matters drawings appear to show a much greater floor areas than on the outline application, and I'm wondering if the planning officer is able to confirm the difference between the 2 application floor areas.
Yes, I can. Obviously, as I was saying previously, the outline application, the plans submitted were illustrative only, so they weren't approved documents. The only plan that was approved at outline was the location plan and a red line around the application site. So whilst they were submitted for illustrative purposes, they can't, you couldn't necessarily hold the applicants to those exact dimensions when they submitted the outline. Clearly, in the reserve matters, clearly when they submit the reserve matters, they have carried out some site survey work, so they will be much more accurate, and they have decided on the size of dwellings that they think are appropriate, and this size of dwelling meets all of our planning, our current planning policy. So from my perspective, whilst they may be a bit bigger, that doesn't make them unacceptable.
Thank you, Officer, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Vachon.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions, really. One I've already answered. I was looking at that photograph there, and I noticed, obviously, the 30-mile-an-hour limit signs start before the property begins, but I realised, reading the proposal, that actually it's already been negotiated that the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs will be moved beyond this development site further up the lane. So that's answered my first question. The second one was regarding the actual frontage, the hedge on the front. You say it's been cut down to another level. I mean, is it necessary to, or could it be a condition that the hedge is grown to a certain height to block the view? Because I can see the houses on the opposite side will have quite a good view of that, the two properties. But could that visual sort of image be blocked by insisting on a higher hedge height? Thank you.
Yes, there is a condition proposed on the recommendation that indicates, asks for further details on the planting and the planting specification, and it could be that we could add something to that condition to require that the height of the hedge is kept to a certain height. Obviously, with growing things, it can't always be maintained for whatever reason, but there would be, a little bit left in the hands of nature to a degree, but we could certainly think about adding something along those lines if members felt this was appropriate.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Weimer.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you. Just coming in on all that, I think what if members are of a mind that they think there needs to be a condition to seek to protect the height of the hedge, I think there's a couple of things we need about. I think the most appropriate way to deal with that would be for the condition that Mrs. Houselander referred to add that there was a management plan provided on how the hedge was going to be maintained to a particular height. I don't have, and I don't believe we have, dimensions of precise dimensions of the height of the hedge. So I think we could potentially say that we'd be looking at for it to be retained at a certain height above the ground level inside of the site, because that, to my mind, that would seem to be more appropriate from the road, because it's how it relates to the ground level. But this is a growing hedge, and if you look at the other hedges in this picture, as part of good management, you would expect them to be trimmed every now and again. So I think we've got to be a little bit careful that we don't end up in a position where we condition something to the extent that they can't trim it and maintain it in accordance with good practice for hedgerow maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend, did you want to come in on that particular one? Because obviously this is right beside the highway.
Thank you, Chair. As Ms. Houselander alluded in her presentation, throughout this process with the outline application and with the current application, the Highway Authority has sought to provide visibility displays in the direction of the hedge of 2.4 by 43 metres, and the Highway Authority conceded that due to the narrowness of the road, that could actually be taken to the centre line of the road in this instance. The plan, there was a plan that was prepared for the outline application, which was never actually formally approved as part of the previous outline application. And it is for that reason that there is a condition on the outline that specifies that the hedge details have to be agreed by the planning authority, one would assume, after consulting with me as well. But ultimately, anything that happens with that hedge is a recommendation from us as a highway authority, because there may be other issues with respect to preserving the hedge line for planning reasons.
Thank you. Mr. Fairbairn, if you have something to add at all, please. Mr. Fairbairn.
Sorry, Chairman, another one of talking away whilst on mute. Sorry. What I was saying that in respect of the query that arose earlier regarding the hedgerow and the tithe map, I can confirm that a hedgerow that is one that's within a curtilage or marks out the boundary of a dwelling house isn't protected by the hedgerow regulations, and equally a hedge that is protected by the hedgerow regulations, if planning permission is granted for development, then its removal is permitted as a consequence of the grant of planning permission. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So just to be absolutely clear, in case I'm missing something here, that if planning consent was granted, then the applicant could remove that hedgerow. Is that what you're saying?
That it's not. What I'm saying is it's not protected by. It's not protected by the regulations don't apply to the hedge. So hence the importance of the condition of the management condition.
Okay, and we have back to Mrs. Houselander. We do within our list of conditions. There is condition 9, which is details of proposed hedgerows and protection of planting and gaping baskets and planting proposals for them. Is that sufficiently robust to cover this?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think we probably need to add a management plan, and if members are keen to include a height, then we would also have to make reference to that. So I'll put something together now and I'll come back to you with a proposed wording, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. So when we do come to the recommendations, yes, that would be great. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Pearce, I'm sorry you've been kept waiting, but over to you now. Thank you.
Okay, Chairman, thank you. Please could the officer confirm that her recommendation is based on the units being 3-bedroom?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more? No. Okay, thank you. Well, we do have 2 speakers registered. The first one up is Mr. Watts, who's one of the objectors. Mr. Watts, I wonder if I could just ask you just to speak so we can confirm we can hear you, okay? Don't know if maybe you're on mute or we can't currently hear you. Is there somebody from IT who can assist?
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Watts, well, I think you've probably already been briefed, but just for make sure everybody is aware, because there are members of the public who watch on YouTube, so they do need to know as well, that you do have 3 minutes in which to make your presentation. When you get to about 30 seconds before the end, you'll just get a verbal warning, shall we say, and then at the end of the 3 minutes, then I will need to stop you, ask you to wind up and stop. And members will then have an opportunity to ask you any questions if they so wish for clarity. Okay, so
Sorry, can I just ask, because I'm now seeing on my screen Kevin Watt's slides, are my 4 images to accompany my presentation now available for me to call up?
I'm not sure the logistics behind it, how this is working and how the slides are being
Yes,
done.
yeah, I've added them to the end of my presentation, so I'm hoping that the slides that you wanted to be shown are to follow this. So first one is that one.
Okay.
Is that correct?
So, Mr. Watts, just to let you know that obviously the slides that you have pre-sent can be shown, but nothing else can actually be tabled. So as long as you are aware of that. So
these aren't the correct images.
Oh, there might be some. There were some other ones. These ones.
Well, I'm sorry, you're going through them much too quickly for me. Right. No.
That's not.
I had 4 images that were emailed to Kathy Hoare yesterday. That was not one of them. Sorry, you're going way too fast for me.
No, there's another. Here we are. There's a presentation. Is this yours?
Well, this is my first image. Hopefully, the subsequent ones are correct.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Watts. So as and when you're ready to make a start, you'll have 3 minutes. So in your own time, off you go. Thank you.
Thank you. It is greatly disappointing and confusing that this second report is still giving the impression that negotiations with the applicants have taken place and concessions have been made by them. Thankfully, this report now accepts that there have been no changes in the position or depth of setting of either plot, March versus July. It asserts that both plots have been reduced in height. This is extremely difficult to understand from the plans submitted, but I ask you, if there has been any reduction, is it significant enough to make any difference in the appearance of the site, even more so with the plot 1 changes? Both plots are set further up the hillside, not set into it as much as at outline stage, and are now much taller buildings. Image 2, please. The report continues to say that these are 3-bedroom homes, despite the family room upstairs with full ensuite and the manufacturer themselves calling them 4-bedroom plus study on their own website. Is it because acknowledging that they're 4-bedroom means that a minimum of 3 parking spaces per plot is required, plus additional due to our rural location and more for visitors? There can be no doubt that these grand designs do not sit well within the street scene and will totally dominate the view of the field from anywhere. Next image, please. The claim that negotiations with Devon Highways have led to the acceptance by them of a shorter safe visibility display distance is simply untrue and needs further clarification. Image 4. Jacqueline Houselander's presentation contained to you just now the incorrect version of plot 1. The view from the historic Jubilee footpath was deemed to be the most important view of the site at outline stage. This view does not get a single mention in this report. It even goes as far as to say what harm can there be in relation to the height of the buildings. How can this radical change be justified in planning policy terms now? The outline report stated in multiple places that low-profile bungalows would be required to achieve a policy-compliant development on this site. This application was objected to by Hatherley Town Council twice and by 11 local residents. There were no supporters of it. We have accepted that the development can take place on the site, but why is it that the applicants are not being made to set low-profile bungalows well down in the hillside, rather than trying to minimise construction costs and therefore maximise profits for them? I would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Watts. Members, do you have any questions for Mr. Watts? Giving everybody a second, because people sometimes need to think of their questions and then type the word question. Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Watts, for your presentation. I'm looking at the picture that's now on our screen, and I assume that's a sort of photo montage of your view of where those houses will be and how they will look from that viewpoint. Am I right in that?
Yeah, yes, you are. I'm not going to claim that they are going to be totally accurate, but I've not tried to deliberately exaggerate the heights. And clearly that image isn't showing any of the hard landscaping that would accompany those buildings, you know, around the rear of the gardens, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. I might just follow that up and ask the planning officer whether that, to her mind, is a reasonable representation of how the houses will look.
Again, I can't comment on the accuracy. I don't know how in technological terms that they were put on the drawing. As I said in my presentation, the rear boundary lies along sort of in line with the back edge of the property known as Daisies, which is just here on the, I don't know if you can see my cursor. So it might be that they're slightly further up than perhaps they will end up being, but I wouldn't be prepared to make a comment really on the accuracy or not of this drawing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the absence of any other questions, and that just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed for your time, Mr. Watson. Of course, you are very welcome to remain in the meeting until we come to our final decision.
Am I allowed to say anything?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Watson. You've had your time. Okay. All right. Thank you. So now I should like to welcome Mr. Tingle, who is the agent, who equally as well will have 3 minutes. Mr. Tingle, are you able to just speak, just to confirm that we can hear you? Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you. I can see that one of our members has actually raised a question, but I'm going to ask you to hold fire, Councillor Mott, if you would be so kind, and we'll bring that in after Mr. Tingle has spoken as well, please. There might well be other questions. So, Mr. Tingle, you do have 3 minutes, as you have probably heard. You will get a 30-second warning, and at the end of the 3 minutes, I will need to ask you to wrap up and stop, and members will be able to ask you any questions for clarity. Okay, so over to you when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, as has just been said, I'm Jamie Tingle from Wireframe Studio, the agents on the application. We weren't involved in the original outline planning application, but were appointed to deal with the reserved matters that's before you. So we submitted this on the 24th of February, some 8 months ago. So reading through the planning officer's recommendation for approval again, I think there's very little I need to add, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank her for her hard work on this application and getting it to a point where there's no doubt it should be approved. And it's not been made easy because of some irrelevant comments and objections that have been posted and made on this application. So what we've done, we've worked with a planner to look at the relevant concerns that needed to be considered in this reserved matters application. So the fact is, we've got outline approval for 2 dwellings on this site. So any comments questioning the principle of this must be discarded and really shouldn't be debated. So the proposals should be determined on scale, appearance, layout, access and landscaping, etc. So what we've done, we've worked to find solutions to the relevant comments and objections that have been made. These were to reduce the height of the dwellings, to reduce the ridge down, to reduce the site levels where we could, to revise one of the house designs. We've produced sectional and elevational information showing accurately the relationship between the existing adjacent properties. And these drawings clearly demonstrate the scale, the massing and positioning of the dwellings fit seamlessly within the character of the area and the street scene. They follow the natural topography of the site, and it's respectful to the ridge heights, not just of the properties adjacent, but also opposite. So the proposed houses far exceed the distances required from the houses opposite. So the proposals have no overly detrimental impact on surrounding properties or the street scene. The existing hedgerow provides adequate screening of the houses, and it has always been a priority to ensure that any development will not have an overly negative impact on that, and we would welcome conditions to protect it further. The houses themselves are from a turnkey timber frame company called Danwood, and once the groundworks have been completed, the houses will actually be finished within 8 to 12 weeks. This means that disruption to the local area will be minimal and only a short period of time. And the real focus of these houses is on being highly energy efficient. They usually achieve an EPC rating of A. So this means that houses will contribute to the carbon reduction aspirations of your council. So that's it really. Thank you for considering this application today. Thank you for not being swayed by the high level of some irrelevant objections that have been on the planning portal. And I must say that it's been one of the most concise and detailed planning reports I've seen. And I'm sure reading that you'll be able to discern that the details we are submitting for the Reserved Matters application are appropriate and acceptable for this site. So the applicant and myself look forward to you to being the voice of reason on this, and we're sure that the approvals already now in place can be moved forward with the approval of the submitted scheme without any further delay. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Right on time, I think. Councillor Mott, you have a question for Mr. Tingle. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I seem to be firing questions at everybody at the moment. Mr. Tingle, can you please, in line with your aspirations for the carbon reductions and the A rating that you have for the property, can you confirm, please, and my apologies if I've missed this anywhere, are you intending to put in charging points for the properties, please?
We would put charging points in if requested, yes. And can I just mention the house has a whole ventilation system. It's got a heat recovery system in there, and it can be further made even more carbon neutral with air source heat pumps, PV panels. But as it stands, it's way over and above the building regulation demands and achieving really high EPC ratings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wonder if you recognise that photo montage that was put up a minute or two ago, or if not, whether you have a different one.
Sorry, was that to me again?
Yes, was, yeah.
I don't recognise the photo montage. I recognise the images that have been copy and pasted from the Downward website, but I can't comment on the accuracy of them. What I can comment on is the accuracy of our drawings based on a topographical survey that was carried out. The levels work with the gradients, with the ridge heights, and with safe access to the houses, which is also obviously a priority.
And they were the images shown by the planning officer?
They were. Those are the images that have been submitted for this.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Tingle, please? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for your time, Mr. Tingle, and as with everybody else, you are more than welcome to remain in the meeting until we come to our decision. Councillor Mott, you did say you had another question for Ms. Haslander.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check, please, because obviously there is concern over the number of spaces that are provided for parking, bearing in mind that the application before us is for 3 bedrooms and it's not going to take a great leap of faith based on the drawing submitted, that it would be very easy to make that a 4-bedroom property. Should they wish to move that doorway, which is effectively a doorway from the family room into what bedroom 1, I think, from memory, and they wanted to close that doorway off and put the doorway from the landing into where the wardrobe was indicated on that plan, would they need to come back to us for a variation on that, please?
Thank you. No, if it was internal alterations only, then no, they wouldn't.
In that case, I would have concerns over the provision of the parking given for the properties, in that it would be very easy to make that a 4-bedroom dwelling without having to come back to us based on the provision at the moment that they only have 2 spaces for parking and that there is no other off-street parking provided for any visitors or indeed for 3 spaces should that become a 4-bedroom dwelling.
May I respond to that, Chair?
Yes, please do. I was trying to find it in your report, but you go for it. You're ahead of me.
The report does indicate that there is sufficient space on each of the plots to allow for three spaces if needed. They would have to be behind each other on the driveway, but there is space within the confines of each plot to allow for 3 parking spaces, which is what which is the requirement of our SPD for a 4-bedroom dwelling. So there is space on the site so that there wouldn't be the need for anyone to park. In fact, there's probably enough space for 4 spaces within each plot boundary, again parked behind each other on the driveway.
Thank you. I just needed that confirming for clarity.
Page 12 of the officer's report refers, actually, there is just referred to the second paragraph down. Councillor Cheadle.
No, I've had my question, thank you.
Sorry, so you have. It's because I had to jump back one. That confuses me completely. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Members, do we have any further questions? No, it looks not. Let me get back up to the trouble with working in this digital age, just scrolling up and down all the time, that's it. If we go back to the recommendations that are on page 4, before I move that recommendation, I wish to clarify the conditions that we have talked about, which was to add a management plan. Ms. Haslander, you were going to do a bit of tweaking, I believe, if that's the correct phrase. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Very easily done. So the condition which says prior to development above slab level, details of the landscaping and hedgerows, I would add to that a detailed management plan and if members wish, a specified height to be determined through that condition to allow for screening of the site from Park Road.
Okay, so we'll need to bring that potential any height through forward in the debate.
Yes.
With regard to a parking plan, is that something that is doable? I'm not sure if Mr. Fairbairn, I think.
Chairman, yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. Trying to think if there's Mr. Weimer, thank you.
Chair, thank you. Mrs. Haslander, could you put the proposed block plan on the screen, please?
We can hardly hear you, Mr. Weimer. I don't know if you've... That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm just waiting for the block plan.
There you go.
Okay. So as members can see, there's a reasonable amount of parking without going on the access drive in between the two properties. I think, given members' concerns, I understand the concerns. I think that it would be very easy, without requiring any further permission, to turn it into a 4-bed unit with the use of the family room upstairs. That's going to come down to the individual preference of the occupiers. I personally would be less concerned about the use of the study as a 5th bedroom, because I think, as we are now, with more and more people, including all ourselves, working from home, I think there is less likely chance of a study being turned into a bedroom. I think there's more chance of a study being used, perhaps a lot more than it has done in the past, given where we are in the current climate. But I would be comfortable if members wanted to, for a further condition to be put on, that prior to occupation, a detailed parking plan shall be provided that demonstrates that each plot can provide a minimum of 3 parking spaces, and I think that can be done without any additional hard surfacing with the parking and the area shown as permeable drive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So
Could I come in there, Chairman, please? It's all very well providing a parking plan as a condition, but there's no guarantee that the residents of the 2 properties will stick to it.
I think at the moment, Councillor Pearce, we're just looking to move the recommendation, and then that can perhaps be debated. I was just trying to make sure that any added conditions essentially were as it was moved, and then they can be debated then.
Okay, fine.
Okay, if that makes sense to everybody. Okay, so I'm not getting anything from any more, assuming my internet's still working. Okay, yes. The reason I'm not putting my video on is because I don't have a particularly stable internet connection, and I will disappear out the room if I try, I think. So I will move the recommendation, which is for approval with those conditions as laid out on page 4. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. So we are now in debate, members. Anybody wish to speak to the item? In particular, also thinking about any height that might want to be added on the hedge. Sorry, I was on mute. Councillor Cheadle, thank you.
It's much better to hear you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I've just got a comment. I've got significant sympathy for the objectors to this application, because I think, reading the outline report, they probably would have expected 2 bungalows, 2 3-bedroom bungalows, and what's in front of them is 2 4-bedroomed houses. So I can understand why they're concerned and upset. Against that, having looked at the design of the proposed developments and the heights of the adjacent houses, I'm less concerned that they will be so obtrusive. So I'm minded to support this application, but I do think it's a bit rich to describe these dwellings as 3-bedroomed houses when we've been discussing how easy it is to turn them into 4-bedroom ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier, then Councillor Pearce. So Councillor Crozier.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was testing my mind over this hedge problem. And the only way you can dictate a growing thing is to subscribe to a minimum height, or a height of which it can't be trimmed below, because it's always going to grow upwards. So perhaps we should be minded that the hedge line as it is, or whatever, is the minimum height for the hedge in future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I've got real apprehension about the scale of these 2 units. We've been told that Hatherley needs larger properties, but is this the right place for them? I unfortunately was on the committee when we battled with the outline planning application, and it was made very clear. I know the officers have said that there was nothing set in stone to do with the outline application. It was just a matter of access and the principle of development. But I just wonder how a planning inspector would view this, given that it's in a lane leading from Hatherley town centre out into the open countryside. And it will have quite a visual impact from the other end of the street, because when you go back down the lane towards the town centre, you've got a slight rise before you drop down into the town centre itself. And I do have real concerns, and I'm surprised that none of the Hatherley board members have spoken today. It's very disappointing that members of our planning committee, DM committee, have not had the luxury of having those local ward members' knowledge and expertise. So I'm very concerned about this. I really am. Also, I'm concerned about the parking issues, because we all know, even more so, I found that with people working from home, that you've got more than 2 cars per property when you've got a family home. So, and it is a very narrow lane outside. So, I feel for the local residents if we approve this, but it's a very difficult one in the circumstances. It really is. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mott, please.
Thank you, Chair. As nobody else seems to be putting it forward, yes, I can understand the objector's disappointment that we are looking at 3-4 bedroom houses as opposed to bungalows as indicated on the outline application. However, I would like to propose amendments to the recommendation in that it would be nice to see the provision of electric charging points to the properties as they are being touted as environmentally friendly dwellings. I would also like to see a parking plan, which would indicate that they are able to support the safe parking and movement of 3 vehicles off of the drive. And I would also like to see a management plan which would be able to retain the hedgerow without any prospect of it being removed in the future, please.
Thank you. I think part of that regarding the detailed parking places has been included in the original recommendation. Equally, the management plan with perhaps not quite so much detail. So do you have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second that. Councillor Hipsey.
That's Steve Hipsey, Councillor Hipsey. Thank you. I just didn't recognise your voice there for a second. You didn't pop up on the screen for some reason. Okie dokie. So we will then. That is looking at those the charging points, detailed management plan. We need an indication of a minimum height of what a hedge or the hedge itself would actually be. I'm looking for some officer guidance on this one because at the moment we don't know the current height.
I think, Chair, in line with the height also that it cannot be removed, as Mr Fairbairn indicated previously, it's not protected, and I would like to be assured that that future residents are unable to take down parts of the hedge or to punch a new entrance through, or possibly to remove it altogether, please.
Yeah, okay, yes, that was in part of your, in your part of what your recommendation was. Losing track on the chat. Mr Weimer, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite comfortable that the condition as outlined by Mrs Houselander will provide the protection to the hedgerow that Councillor Mott has just sought in terms of its total removal. I think we need to have a think about the trigger point for that, because my feeling is that we probably need to get the hedgerow protection in prior to commencement, because at the moment I wouldn't want to see that something happens before the condition triggered. In terms of the minimum height, I've got a little bit of a difficulty here because I honestly don't know what the height of the hedge is as we speak today. I would think what we could potentially do, because what we're seeking is a management plan, and the management plan would set out what the minimum height would be. So I think, provided if members are happy with a management plan, I think we can then make sure that we visit the site within the next 2-3 days to take a measurement in terms of what the height actually is now, and ensure that it doesn't go below, or so that as it is now is that minimum height. If that's acceptable to members. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Vachon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's regarding the height of the hedge I was going to comment on. On the previous slide, to the one you've got on the screen at the moment, there's a section view of the properties and the road, and also it actually gives the height of the hedge prior to it being cut down. The there's another slide which is closer to which is more of a close-up than that, like similar to the bottom one down there. That you just keep going. It's a section. It's a cross section across the hill with the properties to the right-hand side, and it goes into the lane of the road. No, there's another one. Anyway, it was there. The top part of that drawing there actually shows the original height of the hedge on the left-hand side, and that goes up to what, 5 meters at the top, and that's what originally it was. And I'm suggesting that perhaps we could use that as the screening guide for the condition. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Thank you. Mr. Fairbairn, you're going to come in some advice. Should be very gratefully received, I think.
Thank you, Chairman. What I was going to suggest is that rather than us try and agree the wording of the condition as a committee, which is not always a good thing, can I suggest that we agree that you agree the delegation of the wording of the Hedgerow condition to the head of planning in consultation with yourself and the Vice Chairman?
Happy with that, if members are happy with that. Nobody's saying anything to the contrary.
I think I'd quite like to see the whole thing.
When you say, Councillor Moyes, when you see the whole thing, you mean you would like to see the wording of the condition,
yes,
of the full wording of the condition.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, sorry, we've got several people sort of talking over each other and it's echoing back. So, so Mr. Fairbairn, in those circumstances, can we agree and then it is circulated via email?
I think as it would be in consultation with, because the ultimate decision would be the head of planning. So yes, that would be permissible. Suggest that you any comments on the wording are copied to all members who are circulated.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. That's fine, thank you. I've got various people coming up with comments. I think I'm just trying to check I haven't missed anybody. Councillor Crozier, then Councillor Mott. Oh, hang on just a second. Mr. Weimer's just popped up, but he wants to come in.
Sorry, a bit of a fly in the ointment. I absolutely understand why members were saying that the condition should say the height of the hedge should be a minimum of the 5 meters that's shown on that section. The difficulty I have with such a condition is that at the moment the hedge isn't at that height. So as soon as you put a condition on saying the minimum height shall be 5 meters, through the condition is in breach as soon as you impose it. So I think what we could say that the management plan should show how it's going to get to that height, but I don't think we can say it's got to be a minimum of that height when it isn't at that height at the moment, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, I've got Councillor Crozier and then I think Councillor Mott. I think I haven't missed anybody. Councillor Crozier.
Thanks, Chairman. Sorry to be a fly in the ointment on this one, but I thought the minimum height should be adjudged at the trim height, and then there'd be growth throughout the year to make it higher. But secondly, the other thing that concerns me on this is the curtilage to that hedge, that driveway shouldn't. They're probably able to increase the size of that driveway by cutting down towards the hedge, and that would worry me because it would probably restrict the hedge growth if there was less soil there for the roots to attain to. I don't know whether they could increase the driveway without planning permission. That's all I wanted to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring you in just a second, Councillor Mott. I'm just looking what Councillor Fashion is suggesting, that height should be grown and maintained at a 5 metre height, or a minimum 5 metre height. Would that then get around, in terms of the management plan, would that then get around preventing the applicant from being in breach from day one?
Chair, if I can come in on that. Yes, potentially it would. what I'd like to do before we actually draft out a final condition and send it to members for comment is I would want to get the views of one of our either landscape or trees officers to make sure that what the management plan is achievable, and making sure that what we're saying is in good either arboricultural or landscape practice in terms of the time it's going to take to get to that height. Because my very limited understanding is that a hedge will be a lot better if it does get trimmed and goes up slowly rather than in one season.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Moss, I think.
Thank you, Chair. It was just really to say that I've got every confidence in our officers and yourself and Councillor Pearce as Vice Chair to be able to make this decision when you actually get a management plan, rather than it being debated over half a metre here and there between us as members on the committee. So I am happy for it to go to you as delegated authority. I'm assuming that that's what my original proposal was. It would have brought that in, that Councillor Hipsey would be happy to still to second that.
Yeah, okay. You happy with that?
Sorry.
You happy with that, Councillor Hipsey?
I am indeed.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further debate, members, on this application? Nope. Okay, then we will take this one to the vote. So again, you'll just be asked to confirm that you're present and to vote for, against or abstain, and the officer's recommendation is for approval. Okay, thank you.
Chair, just one potential thing, just before we move to the vote, so members are absolutely clear what we're voting on. There's two additions to the officer report recommendation I see, which is the hedgerow protection management plan being delegated to Mr. Wyman in consultation with yourself as chair and Councillor Pearce as vice chair. And there's the addition of the parking plan, but the unknown, which hasn't been bottomed out, I don't think yet, Chair, is this issue that Councillor Mott raised about the charging points.
Oh right, yes, we well, members haven't said that. That was part of Councillor Mott's amendment.
Yes.
So do we need to?
So I think really, Chair, if you and Councillor Pearce as Vice Chair are happy to accept those as part of your recommendation, and that would be a third addition which is swept up into the motion.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Councillor Pearce, are you happy with that?
Yes, Chairman, I am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will ask again if there's any further debate, and is everybody absolutely sure on what they are voting for, which is principally, or voting for, against, or abstaining from, is that the recommendation is for approval with those conditions plus those additions that have just been referred to. Okay, in which case we will go through the names for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, can you just confirm that you have been present and have heard all of the debate? Thank you. Councillor Cheadle.
Yes, I was here throughout the debate, heard all the comments, and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
I was here throughout the debate and have heard all the arguments, and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I've been here throughout, and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
I was present through the debate and presentation and support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
Yes, I heard the whole debate and I'll support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I heard the whole presentation and debate, and I cannot support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, I was present throughout the debate, and I also support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Vachon.
Yes, present throughout and support the recommendation.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
Present throughout and vote for the recommendation.
Thank you. So that's 8 for and 1 against.
Okay, so thank you very much. So that is carried. Thank you for your time to the visiting speakers who came in. I'm just looking at the time. It's 20:01. We are due to start the the report for Plymouth Road at 1 o'clock. I would, and while we have still got the performance indicators and the appeals to go through, I propose to defer those to after the Plymouth Road update, because I am conscious that members have been here since 9:30 or 9:15 in actual fact, and do need a break, as do officers, and an opportunity to grab yourselves a quick sandwich. So I'm going to put in a 30-minute break, so we reconvene here promptly at 1:10. The recording will stop, but if anybody does still remain in the meeting, I would suggest you just keep your microphones on mute. I don't think there will be any of the public actually in. It'll only be members coming in and officers from here on in, I believe. Okay, so I'll see you all at 1:10. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Enjoy your sandwich.